Welcome to this special city council meeting, our second special city council meeting for the day for May 10th. And we are calling this meeting to order at 3:09 p.m. Let's have roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian.
Present.
Rotman.
Here.
Devine.
Here.
Najarian.
Here.
And Mayor Kasakian.
Here. For anyone who wishes to participate or comment on the meeting, there may be some public comments on the items that we're considering. You may call 818-937-8100. You see that number in the upper corner of your screen if you're watching from home. And again, 818-937-8100. May we have your report, please?
The agenda for the Tuesday, May 10th, 2022 special public meeting of the City Council was posted on May 4th, 2022 on the bulletin board outside City Hall.
Thank you. Can you please read the first item before the council?
Library's Arts and Culture regarding citywide public Artsakh Avenue ground level sculpture public art piece. A motion authorizing the city manager or designee to enter into an agreement for commission of artwork subject to approval by the city attorney with Forma Studio in the amount not to exceed $100,000 dispersed from the Urban Art Fund to design, fabricate, and install a public art piece entitled Tamit Gohar for the Artsakh Avenue ground level sculpture public art piece.
Thank you. Mr. Galanian.
Yes, good afternoon, Mayor Kasakian, members of City Council. Last month, the Arts and Culture Commission was presented 3 proposals for Artsakh Avenue ground level public art piece as part of the Downtown Arts and Entertainment District's revitalization project. And the commission recommended Forma Studio for the artwork, as was read into record, Tamit Gohar, for this opportunity. And now we're pleased to present the item for your consideration. And I'm going to invite Gary Schaefer, Director of Library Arts and Culture, to make the presentation.
Good afternoon, Mayor Kasakian, members of the council, city colleagues. Delighted to be here today. Gary Schaefer, Director, Library Arts and Culture, to present 2 proposals for Artsakh Avenue. I know all of council is aware, but for any viewers at home, these 2 pieces, should council approve them, are funded from the Urban Art Fund. This is a fund that developers pay into in order to place art in and around the city. And that is the specific use for those funds. On October 20th, 2020, council approved the hiring of Labas Projects to procure and place 10 pieces of major art in Glendale, 3 of which were to go on Artsakh Avenue. On May 20th, 2021, Commission chose 6 of those 10 locations, 3 being on Artsakh. On August 16th, 2021, Labas released the Citywide Public Art Landmarks RFQ. 256 artists responded from across the globe. The selection committee chose 3 to 5 finalists for each opportunity and paid them a small stipend to complete a proposal. On March 1st, 2022, council approved Matthew Mazzato's Bountiful, a tree-like structure, which will go on the south block of Artsakh. Today, we are here to present a new proposal for the north block, which we'll present to you first. We are hopeful to get a motion to move forward on this piece after the presentation. Then we will re-present to council Curtain by Paul Coxedge Studio, along with some additional, yes.
I'm sorry, let's concentrate on the Tamit Gohar because that was read into record. Okay. We'll come back to the second item, then you can present that one separately.
So much.
Let me ask the city attorney, does it make sense to have the second item read as well, or shall we?
I think you should probably do one at a time.
Okay.
All right. My apologies. So with that then, I would like to introduce Bo Bass from Labas Associates to take us through the presentation.
Council members, Mr. Mayor, thank you very much for having me. My name is Bo Bass. I am the CEO and creative director of Labas Projects, a public art consulting firm here in Los Angeles. We've been fortunate to work over the last, it's almost been a year, with the city of Glendale in sort of putting together the strategy and plan and hopeful eventual delivery of these 10 art installations. Very excited to present and share with you this first opportunity to meet Gohar, as the title of the sculpture, by Forma Studio. Forma Studio are two individual artists, Sixto Cordero and Karen Kitayama, who are based here in Los Angeles. We requested for artists to concept a site-specific installation for the North Block on Artsakh Avenue. The goal for this project was to have artwork that was a landmark, a memorable, engaging piece of artwork for the community. We wanted artwork that people would be able to connect with, take pictures with, and ultimately artwork that would have a connection to the community. And we felt, my team, the Arts and Culture Commission, felt very strongly, almost unanimously, that this To Meet Gohar piece really connected on all of our goals. It is a 13-foot tall stainless steel sculpture. The outside is a reflective mirrored piece. The inside has a gold stain. It is intended to be lit with LED lighting, both internally and externally. Let's see renderings here. Let's see if they have the details. So one of the things that I'm really excited, I don't know if it's in if we put the narrative in here. To Meet Gohar is actually, I want to make sure I'm getting this absolutely correctly. Forma Studio spent a lot of time researching the history of both the city of Glendale, of the Tongva tribe, the Armenian community, and that is where the name To Meet Gohar comes from. It is actually, to meet means sun in the Tongva language, and Gohar means jewel in Armenian. And so they looked at this, particularly with Glendale being the jewel city, as sort of like the sun jewel of the city. So there was a lot of research done in both naming the sculpture and as well as the shape, the design, and everything. So it reflects everything from Armenian symbols to Tongva symbols of the sun. And you can see the sort of the shape from above. So this piece is directly connected to both the history of Glendale and of one of the significant cultural groups here, especially when it comes to Artsakh Avenue. Just some more renderings that the studio's put together. To Meet Gohar has a budget of $100,000, which is what we allocated for this piece. And that will include everything from the fabrication, the installation, and the lighting of the artwork. I won't do that quickly. I know there was a bigger package shared, but does anybody have any questions about the piece?
Okay.
Councilmember Brotman.
Yeah, one of the renderings had this color scheme, so the lights can provide different kind of color options?
Yeah,
or-
absolutely. So if you look at this view, the exterior is like a polished mirrored stainless steel. And let's see if I can find the image here. If you look from above, it will be lit, and they actually have lighting specs here. They're going to be using LED lighting that can be programmed to change colors. So as the day goes, or particularly in the evenings, they'll be able to actually program the specific lighting. So
So we could select different lighting for different events, or like Pride Festival, or, I don't know.
Conceivably, yes. I know this being an artwork, not a sort of a commercial building, I think the artists are going to, once they're commissioned, these are all concept renderings. They'll probably come up with a very specific lighting plan. In our experience, these LED lighting, there usually are some accessibility and programmability, where if the city had specific requests of Pride Festival, we want to light it up a certain way, we would have to work with the artist to sort of reprogram those lighting plans, but it's certainly within the realm of possibility.
And, oh, sorry, one.
Yes, please go ahead.
We're seeing a lot of the images from the front where you can see a bit of the interior because of the way it's cut. But how about when you're on the other side? What does it look like from the back?
I don't think we have a
From the
rendering.
north looking south?
Yeah, I don't know exactly what you're asking for. I don't think we have a rendering from that direction. Obviously, you're not going to see the interior, but I think if you had it flat, you wouldn't be able to see any of it. So I think there is an intention that it has to be visible from one side with the angle, so you can see the sort of gold reflection. And obviously, if it's just a level top, you're not going to be able to see it that angle. So from the other side, it would just be a mirrored stainless steel.
And no lights on the back side, or there?
No, the entire thing is lit.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, so if you look at the overhead lighting plan, you can see there's lights basically all the way around. So it's lit, it'll be lit in the evenings from all angles. But the internal and this angle that you're seeing, you have to have that angle from one perspective.
Right, okay.
Well, thank you very much. I think I got both of my questions answered. Lights all around so that even when you're on the backside on page, I think it's the second page of the PowerPoint,
Oh, I'm sorry. You're
right
looking
there.
for-
Back one, back there. But it'll be lit all the way around, so that
Yes, actually, if
backside
you
will
look
be.
at this,
Yeah.
this plan, you can see those yellow spots are the lighting elements. So it'll be lit from all sides.
And I think you answered my question. It's polished mirror stainless
It's a,
steel.
yes, it's a mirrored, so it's stainless steel, and it's actually mirrored. So they polish the steel so it actually is reflective.
Okay.
So you'll
and
be able to essentially see a little bit of your reflection.
That's what I'm doing.
yes.
Okay, all right. Thank you. Thank you. That's it.
Councilmember Najarian.
Who's going to clean out the stuff that gets tossed in there?
This is actually really interesting.
there
It's
access
it's in their full, we reduced a very significant concept plan. They're actually, it's actually open at the bottom, so things will actually flow out. And they're already talking about designing, as they get into the engineering of it, having an access panel to be able to access one, to potentially, if you need to change the lighting on the inside, but there will be an access panel.
Okay, good,
Yeah,
good.
but water, debris will actually flow out.
Very good.
Yeah.
Councilmember Agajanian.
The base of this piece, it's 8 feet? The
13
base.
feet. It'll be
Oh, the
sitting on an
height
18-inch
is-
pedal and then 13 feet tall, yes.
No, but how, the diameter of the base, how big is the base?
8 feet. Sorry, the diameter is 8
This
feet.
is not to the scale then, right?
Yes, actually, if you look at this, the top illustration has the 8-foot diameter, and then you're looking at a 13-foot vertical.
No, but what I'm trying to say, it's not to the scale what has been drawn. Because if that's 13, that base cannot be 8.
Yes,
Oh, no, I'm sorry, the diameter is 8 feet, and it's 13 feet vertical.
Right. But the drawing is not to the scale.
Yeah, Councilmember Agajanian, you're right. It's not drawn to scale.
This drawing is not to the scale.
It's,
Because the base looks smaller than being 8 in relation to 13 feet height.
yes, it doesn't appear to be drawn to scale, but this is just a rendering.
Yes.
I mean, it gives different
Yeah,
picture.
okay, now I understand exactly what you're asking.
Because it gives different impression when it's not to the scale.
I believe this should be to scale.
I don't think so, but you can check again. But
Yeah, I mean, because they have it rendered out here with human beings, and they've got the 18-inch, 18-inch base, 13-foot tall, and then an 8-foot cylinder. So maybe the base here is not to scale,
right.
Might be.
but it should be. Actually, again, if you flip that on its side, it's pretty close to being double.
That to me, it's.
I don't have the
looks a
measuring
little
tape,
bit
apologies.
Looks to me a little bit smaller, and it gives different picture of. Okay, thank you.
Any other comments? So I do like it. Kind of reminds me of Cloudgate, obviously, because of the polished metal aspects of it. My question is this, that in concept and in renderings, things always look a little bit nicer than they do in real life. Are we going to have any issues with this emanating a lot of light and heat to the
You know,
neighboring
that's,
office buildings with the movement of the sun? Is it going to be something that's going to blind people and the nearby offices, and we're going to have to hear about it from them afterward, the fact?
You know, this is actually a really interesting question that comes up. We've done quite a few really large mirrored sculptures in other cities, and it's always been a question. Cloudgate's a great example of a really highly polished mirrored sculpture that is like world famous.
A giant jelly bean in
Right,
Chicago
it's a giant
frame.
bean. So if you're familiar, Anish Kapoor's Cloudgate in Chicago is the giant bean that's polished metal. Those actually don't really reflect light that strong. It's mirrored, but it is not a mirror. So the stainless steel is not going to reflect quite like if you took a mirror, to ants on the sidewalk kind of thing. So we've had no experience with it.
That's fine. Thank you. So then my other question would be, or my suggestion, this is an interesting, unique piece. I like that it combines the heritage of some of the early settlers of this area, as well as the newest settlers, some of the communities that have now called this area home. So I like the intersectionality of those two cultures. How will people know what this piece is besides maybe going on the city's website and reading about it? Will there be anything informational nearby, so QR code people can scan, some way of understanding what that piece is, that it is an art piece that the city commissioned? And then in addition to that, on Artsakh Street, a couple of years ago, there was a augmented reality installation, an art exhibit that was done that you could only view using your phone and an app. Have you considered using that to incorporate some of those new technologies into having an interaction with this actual physical stationary piece?
Yeah, very good questions, actually. Typically, on all of the projects, and we haven't gotten to the specifics, but I would expect there certainly to be an informational plaque on this. We've been working with Studio 111, who's been in charge of redeveloping the Artsakh streetscape. There will be benching along the side of this, I don't think you can, so you can sort of see in the back of the renderings.
And some of the other
So the intent is to work with Studio 111 to actually make this a piece that people can sit, engage with, and actually physically sort of connect with. And I would expect there to be some sort of plaque information about the artist, the title, and sort of a limited background. We have discussed in the Arts and Culture Commission, we've brought up potential AR interactivity because we're looking at 10 installations across the city. It's been under discussion with the Arts and Culture Commission about how do we use something like augmented reality and QR codes so people can find out more information. So that's in discussion, certainly. We haven't necessarily finalized exactly how we want to treat that, but we do think it'd be very important to have specific information about the piece on site.
Well, it definitely has some Instagrammable qualities to it, as the youth say. Do you have any other comments?
I just wanted to say that I like the site significance that you've brought to this piece, and that you're recognizing, it recognizes in its form the diversity of our community, and I particularly like that for this site. Thank you.
Thank you. Yeah.
Thank you. Now, do we have a call?
Mayor, yes, we have one caller.
Thank you.
Joe Russin, you have 3 minutes. Joe, go ahead. Mr.
Hello,
Russin.
can you hear me?
Yes, go ahead, sir.
Well, once again, the Art Commission has failed. Once again, the Art Commission has failed. The presenters haven't even bothered to create a model that you could look at, which is incredibly, so you're buying a pig in the poke. Furthermore, this piece is so bland as to have been meaningless. It does not fulfill the idea of creating a space where people would want to come to Glendale to see it. It is too small for the site. It is very bland. It does not fulfill any of the reasons for the RFP. And I think the City Council would be wise to reject it and ask the Arts Commission to come up with something better. Thank you.
Thank you. Noted. Is there anything that anyone would like to add about the absence of a rendering or a physical model? I think that what we have is more or less satisfactory to me. I don't know what difference it would make for me to have a small model of this to physically look at it. Perhaps in other cases it may, but I don't think so necessarily for this. Do any of my colleagues have any comments before we vote, or is there a motion?
I'll move the item. I like it, and I think it's appropriate, and I like the size, so I would like to go forward.
I'm waiting for a second.
Second.
All right. May we have a roll call, please?
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Devine,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Kasakian.
Yes, thank you. May we have the second item read into the record?
Second item is Libraries and Arts and Culture regarding citywide public art landmarks, Artsakh Avenue Gateway Public Art Piece, A, motion authorizing the city manager or designee to enter into an agreement for commission of artwork, subject to approval by the city attorney with Paul Coxetch Studios in the amount not to exceed $550,000, dispersed from the Urban Art Fund to design, fabricate, and install a public art piece entitled Curtain for the Artsakh Avenue Gateway Public Art Piece.
Mr. Galania?
Mr. Kasakian, member City Council, this council has previously seen the two public art pieces for overhead and gateway pieces on Artsakh Avenue. And during the deliberation, council expressed concern about safety of pedestrians walking around the curtain artwork, as well as weather-related safety issues. Staff has connected with our building and safety personnel to respond to these questions, and you also at the previous meeting requested to see the art pieces proposed by the three finalists. So with that, go ahead, please.
All right, thank you again. I apologize I was not able to present to you last time because I feel like some of the questions would have been a lot easier for me to answer. And I think some of the details about why the Arts and Culture Commission felt so strongly about this piece were sort of were lacking. So if you allow me to sort of represent this piece, I'll start with the most important request we had of all of the artists that applied for this project. This gateway, we wanted to be a landmark visual piece for the city of Glendale, for Artsakh Avenue. We wanted it to be a portal and entrance to the neighborhood, to Artsakh. That was the sort of the number one goal we gave all of the artists. We also wanted it to be memorable. There are plenty of gateways, overheads that we've driven past in cities that are sort of, obvious that says, welcome to Glendale, but we wanted it to be something a little more creative and cultural than that. And the Arts and Culture Commission, I think we felt strongly that Paul Coxetch's studio really delivered on this. So Paul is a world-famous artist, multiple major installations across Asia and Europe. He's based in the UK. He's done some really amazing works. We were really excited to have him apply to this project because this would be unique not just to Glendale, but to California and the West Coast of the United States. He doesn't have any work here. So I included some past examples of his work. And I wanted to share his thoughts, and this is sort of his process about how he concepted this piece. Number one on the top, you can see he wanted it to be a landmark. He wanted to have motion and energy. Mayor, you mentioned it being Instagrammable, right? We wanted to have that ability for people to want to take photos in front of, through, and around this piece. And then we want it to be visually accessible. We want it to be accessible both at a ground human scale in front of, and also as traffic driving by or up and down Artsakh. And so what he concepted is actually, his inspiration was the idea of like a curtain or a piece of paper that was blowing in the wind. So I think somebody mentioned that as a question. That's what they thought it looked like. That's literally what his inspiration was for this. And again, his thought was this sculpture really acting as a portal. We look out through a curtain, as he explained it, we open our curtains to look out into the world. And when you look at the renderings, one of the things that we loved about this, I think was mentioned in the Arts and Culture Commission, was that you have something that is so big, has so much weight to it, but actually feels really light, right? This is going to be 30 feet tall. These strands of steel are going to be, upwards of 18 feet long. They're going to feel like they're blowing in the wind, but there's nothing more impressive, I think, than when you're standing under something that is really heavy, but is suspended to feel very airy. I think that was the intent of this installation. And again, that goes back to our goals. We want this to be a landmark piece. We want this to be memorable. We want this to be something that 25 years from now, people still can say, hey, did you meet me at the Curtain in Glendale, right? We want that to be that point of community connection. And to answer some of the questions that I know were brought up in terms of the fabrication, the concerns of, is this going to fall down? Is this safe? We actually spoke with Building and Safety and Planning. We spoke with the city engineers, and they basically had no concerns. And again, the reason we're not really concerned about this isn't a kind of work that the artist is going to make in their their studio and just show up and kind of like stick in the ground. These works are heavily, heavily engineered. Carlson Baker Fine Arts, who's based here in Southern California, who's fabricated, a lot of the major sculptures you've seen in Southern California, they've already been chosen by Paulus, the local fabricators. All of this will be engineered. Carlson Baker already felt very comfortable that their engineers could design this thing to be safe. And imagine the posts, imagine tall light posts being embedded in the ground. I think it's the same concept. Only this is more stable because you actually have the cross brace. So all of this will be engineered. Those engineering plans still have to be permitted with the city. So the city is double checking. So again, all of these things are incredibly safe. One of the other elements that Paul, again, what we're looking at and what we've asked the artist to do is provide us the general concepts. One of the things that he really wanted to include was actually inscribing welcome verses in different languages into all of the fins. Now, he hasn't gone through the process of actually writing all of those out yet, but the idea would be that each one of these ribbons would actually have etched language, welcome messages and poetry in different languages on all of these fins. So as you walk under this thing, you have this scale and the ability to sort of feel how impressive the sculpture is from afar. Yet when you get close, there's actually a smaller connection and a smaller detail that you can see from a ground level. And again, the scale of this being 35 feet tall, we know there has to be a 17-foot clearance for fire. So that's already being planned. So, the concerns about this being too low, about we're already in discussion with, fire and building and safety that, Paul's going to make sure all of the codes are followed. Again, they've got a whole fabrication plan already. Budget, again, comments from building and safety, and letters from Carlson Baker Fine Arts. But I think it was really important to note that on the Arts and Culture Commission, this was unanimously the number one selection of all but I think 2 council members, and then for both of those commission members, it was number 2. So this was a top selection almost across the board unanimously. I know our team feels really good about this. We're really excited to hopefully get a piece from Paul into the city of Glendale, into Southern California. And I think we all felt really confident that this would be an installation that would be so memorable. This will definitely, in my experience as a public art consultant, these are one of the installations that people will say, hey, we're gonna meet on Brand Boulevard. We're gonna go to Eggslut. We're gonna go shopping. Where should we meet? Meet me at the Curtain. This will, without a doubt, be one of those installations and one of those moments in Glendale. So if there are any other questions, I was hoping to address everything that I was told were questions, but please let me know if there's anything else.
Small question.
Councilmember Brotman.
Just looking at this, I can't tell, is it going to be, what's the word I want to use? Like perpendicular, I don't know if it's parallel or perpendicular. It's going to be straight across, or is one leg going to come forward a little bit?
The intention right now, and again, there's a lot of engineering and planning that needs to be done with Studio 111, who's redesigning the cityscape, because what you're seeing in these renderings right now, that car is actually going to be sidewalk. So if I know you've spent some time with the redevelopment plan, but half of this street will actually be pedestrian sidewalk. So this curtain's actually even more over pedestrian landscaping than it appears. We don't have renderings of those yet. Studio 111 hasn't created those renderings for us. So there's actually more pedestrian, and right now the intent is for it to be directly, I guess, perpendicular to ArtSoc. Is that right? Perpendicular?
Perpendicular is,
Yeah.
Okay, because I was looking at it, it just seemed like that could be an an idea to make it slightly off. I don't know, it could give it some extra interest rather than being like,
Yeah.
kind of, anyway, I'm not an artist, I'm just
No,
throwing it out.
I totally get what you're saying. I think the idea, and going back to the inspiration of this, is it being literally almost like a curtain looking out into the world. So if you're, Artsakh Boulevard Artsakh Avenue is our window, this becomes sort of the curtain. And I think what you're going to get in terms of that, if you're just looking at, two posts and a crossbar, it's not that interesting. But when you have these massive, again, this is 37 feet tall in a rendering, so those ribbons are going to be 18, 20 feet out. You can imagine walking under these like giant suspended ribbons. I think you're going to get that dynamic motion. We talked about the last piece where sometimes in a rendering you can't tell how dynamic it's going to be. I think the renderings of this aren't going to capture how interesting this is going to be.
Okay.
Yep.
Councilmember Devine.
And I want to piggyback on what Councilmember Brotman said. I feel the same way about this being so square and those sharp edges. And I always think of a gateway as having an arch. And I was thinking, and again, I'm not an artist either, and I would not, profess to tell this artist what to do, but it just seems like it's too abrupt, and if it was arched, it would maybe really feel like a gateway and a curtain into Artsakh Plaza or Paseo. That just seems really, I don't know, harsh or edgy, and I don't know if he would be able to do something or if he would consider something like that, but those are my only. That's my only issue with this. I'm not enamored with it. I think, I see some of his other work that is just extraordinary, that I just love, and this doesn't happen to be one of them. But I just did a little sketch here, and I thought, oh, if it's just arched, it might be a little friendlier, a little bit more welcoming, pass through the curtain, that kind of a. But that's just a suggestion, so.
Yeah, I think already we've actually had to, Paul's been so excited for this project, we've actually had to reel him in a little bit, like, hey, let's get your contract done first. I know they're already going down the road of, what are these posts gonna look like? Again, from a concept drawing rendering to the final engineered product will probably be, already I think their expectations were these posts are gonna be a little more significant than like the skinny little posts we're seeing. So that might add some more of that sort of fuller feel I think you're looking for. And we can certainly discuss it with him in the engineering of like maybe, rounding those corners, maybe treating it more like, almost looking, almost like a molding, right? Because it fits this window and portal,
Yes.
how to soften those edges.
Right, yeah. See what he thinks.
Yeah. No, he seemed
I
very
would never
amenable.
assume to tell him what to do,
No,
but I
it's
just,
interesting, like, in the conversations with the studio, they've been very amenable. They're like, we really like the white, but if they wanted color, they were looking at color options to have it be colored. And I think the Arts and Culture Commission, we all felt the clean white kind of made the most sense. But again, one of the things they didn't include in here was lighting. And the plan was to probably have it be uplit. They show it in the rendering. So you can see it lit up at night, and maybe it's colored with lighting at night, kind of like the previous installation we looked at. But there are a lot of stages of development for this, I think, once, hopefully he's under contract and the concept is approved.
great, okay, thank you.
Yeah.
Councilmember Najarian.
So when we first saw this a couple weeks ago, I didn't like it. But since looking at it, it's grown on me. And I think I do like it now. I'm appreciative of the uplighting. I think that's going to bring a sense of definition to it, as well as the motion, the simulated motion, I guess, of the curtain blowing out. I like it, and I didn't realize this artist was so well known and so famous, if you will. So I think this may be something that actually brings people to Glendale to see art lovers from around the region, to see his Paul Coxedge's work. I don't know if we should make suggestions to him on how he should, you know, form that to be an arch or whatever. I mean, I would just leave it, I wouldn't let that be a deal breaker. I would, you know, mention that that's something that Councilmember Devine or one or, you don't have, we don't have to call her out, but those, you know, that maybe one or two council members are inquiring about that, but, you know, it seems to serve as a frame. The hard edges, the rectangular features, does make it like a frame, almost like a picture if you stand behind it, and you're gonna be looking at, that's our library then at the end of the road, right? If you're looking south.
Yeah.
We're looking south down Artsock, so the end will, yeah.
So you'll have our library, which is, you know, our iconic brutalist structure, so, as well as the other amenities we're putting in there. So I like it at this point.
You know, I love hearing that, Councilman Najarian, because that's what we liked about it, is that at first glance, we looked at all the options, you know, my team, and we talked with, you know, library, arts and culture. It was sort of like, oh, this is nice, we like some of the others, but then the more time we spent with it, the more time it grew on all of us. And I think, again, when I say I'm pretty confident that this installation in whatever final form will be one of those pieces that people, you see, you always remember, and will become that meeting spot where like, hey, this is the curtain in Glendale. And I think, Councilmember Devine, I think the idea of rounding the corners out, I think that's a really smart suggestion. So these are definitely things we'll go back, you know, to Paul with.
Councilmember Agajanian.
See, look, I look at this page which you're showing here. I don't know if they can show on TV, so this way will be clear what I want to say. So there is this utility truck in there. I want to know what's those lines. I don't know if I call it line. I don't know what's the name of those, whatever is hanging.
The ribbons, like the curtains?
Yes. Okay, ribbons. What's the lowest point of ribbons to the floor?
So we have, let me see.
Because on page, if you look at page 11,
so right now, we're in a concept stage. We know the lowest ribbons, we'll call them ribbons, I don't know exactly what they were titled, but the lowest ribbons over the street section will be 17 feet. Because we know that's the code for fire, to be able to get trucks through.
yeah, that's what I was going to say, because if it's not high enough, well, it will cause problem. If you go to, I don't know, maybe this is not to scale, 11, page 11. See how close those lines to the person is 11, page 11, the next, this. See where it comes? So the people are 6 feet or, so this is
Yeah, again,
very,
this is just a concept rendering, so I wouldn't take this image to scale. And even this, again, we're at a concept stage. Even with the other installations that we're already working on, the Bountiful, the tree installation, which was approved, the next step after this concept approval is immediately, and one of the things is these are really time sensitive because what we're trying to do is these particular installations, we need to time the engineering, the fabrication, and all of the planning with Studio 111 and the city to make sure that they're scheduled into all of the work that needs to be done on Artsock Avenue. So what you're seeing in the exact sort of like shape of the curtain will probably change slightly based on where the street is, where we need to take it up to 17 feet. And then again, if you look at this, right, or we'll go back to this one, where that truck is actually going to be pedestrian sidewalk, right? So this is a photo of the street that they superimposed it on, but the redevelopment, the sidewalk takes almost half the street and it's just it's a single lane, it's a one-way lane. So we already know the curtain will be lower over the pedestrian street and will meet the code requirements where the traffic lies. Okay. So again, I think building and safety, planning, all of these things, all the final designs engineering will have to be approved by the city as well.
but I'm happy that you said it's not going to be lower than 17 feet from the ground.
Over the traffic section, no, it'll be 17 feet.
Yeah.
I think over the pedestrian areas, we'd like it to come lower so it has more of a connection with the community, but where we
street-
already know that 17 feet is our minimum for fire.
Okay, that's what I want to bring to your attention. Anyway. But I'm
Yeah, the
glad
nice
that
thing
you-
is we're already really, even before we selected artists, our team was already meeting with Foster and the fire team, so we were already getting a sense of like what are our minimums, what can we work around, meeting with the Studio 111 team. So even pre-artist selection, all of those considerations are things we're already thinking about.
Okay, anyway, thank you. Thank you for considering that because it can be very dangerous proposition otherwise.
Yeah, absolutely. Thank you.
Okay, well, I'm a little bit more agnostic on this. I think I agree with all the comments, both the mixed ones and the ones like Councilmember Najarian said that it's grown on him. I will say that with looking at the impressive portfolio of work of the artists who submitted this, what I like about the other pieces is that they're far more interactive. They're tactile. People can actually sit on them. They can more physically and actively interact with them, whereas this is more observational in terms of the interaction with it, not necessarily tactile. People can't necessarily walk up to it and interact with it. However, I'm not going to impose my pedestrian tastes in art on this. Even the Eiffel Tower, when first constructed, was deemed an eyesore by most of Parisians and the French. So with that, I'll go on to and there's a reason why we have an Arts and Culture Commission and why we appoint them, for them to kind of direct us in these regard, because taste in art can differ from individual to individual. We do have a caller, so let's go to the caller.
Joe Rustin, you have 3 minutes. Go ahead, sir. Joe, can you hear me?
Thank you. It's worth noting that Commissioner Vidor had the same concerns that Councilwoman Devine has. And once again, I want to point out that the presenters didn't even bother to create a model for you to look at so you could tell really what's going on here. The commission asked that there be poems inscribed on these various panels, but that's pointless because you can't see them at 17 feet high. Once again, you're being asked to buy a pig in the poke with a lot of things undecided. And this time, unlike the last time where you wasted $100,000, this time we're being asked to waste $550,000, which could be well better spent. This is hardly going to draw people to Glendale. And once again, the commission has chosen the blandest possible entries, which make no statement, which are not particularly arresting. And they turned down the one proposal that which actually had a lot of research into ArtSac in Romania and Armenia and ArtSac here, and tried to create a stunning piece that really connected with the community. But it wasn't so bland, so I guess the commission turned it down. Since you all expressed certain reservations about this project, I urge you to turn it back and ask the presenters to actually give you a model so you know what the hell you're talking about. Right now, it's a pig in the poke and a potentially huge waste of money. Thank you.
Thank you.
I'm sorry.
Is this guy an art critic, or I wonder what his qualifications are in those comments? I'm not saying that in a snide way, I'm just wondering, is it?
So he is I think he's an art buyer.
Oh, he is, he's in the art world.
He's knowledgeable. I mean, just has, different opinions.
Sure. Any comments?
I had
Yes,
one.
Councilmember Agajanian.
This will cost how much?
$550,000.
Okay.
That budget, there are a couple of things in mind. And so you can look at the previous piece and you can look at a piece like this. Some of that is fabrication costs. I think a piece like this is going to have significantly more engineering, foundational, and fabrication work. The other thing is the level of the artist as well. So, someone like Paul, who's been doing international work, at scale, has a bigger studio versus one of the things we love about supporting younger artists is oftentimes they're willing to deliver more because they're getting their first opportunities to deliver significant public works. That being said, in my experience, a piece at this scale for a budget of in the $500,000 range is, anybody who deals with construction, everybody knows how much costs are going up on everything right now. To me, I think this is a piece at this scale, at this budget, is fairly standard.
Councilmember Devine.
You mentioned that the artist is in London.
Yes.
Is that where he lives?
Yes.
Will this be fabricated there or here
No,
or where?
this will be fabricated at Carlson Baker Fine Arts, which is here in San Fernando Valley.
Okay, and he'll be here to do the work?
In my experience, we've worked on projects internationally with international artists, with local artists in international places. So typically the artists are very hands-on. Paul's lucky, he's got actually a full studio team. He has a production director that's actually in New York. So we expect a lot of coordination. And again, a project like this will take a while to go, engineer and then fabricate and install. And I feel very confident that, again, you've seen Paul's work, Asia, Europe. We feel very confident that he'll be able to deliver on this comfortably.
Councilmember Najarian.
So, rather pedestrian question. Is this going to be warranted for materials and workmanship for any length of time? How will that work?
Typically, there are a couple of years. Carlson Baker Fine Arts, they'll typically warranty this. Usually something this will be a minimum for a couple of years, and we'll work with Carlson Baker Fine Arts, city attorney, and Paul's studio in their contract to determine exactly how long that's for.
We don't want it to break, we don't want it to rust, I presume, or twist or deform.
These are great questions. One of the other things that we make sure, just as our team includes, and one of the things we've talked with Library Arts and Culture for all of these installations is, and we work with a couple of different conservation and maintenance groups here in Los Angeles, so that every installation we work on, and especially all 10 of these eventually for the city of Glendale, will have a conservation and maintenance report. And basically, they'll have budgets for conservation, cleaning, maintenance on an annual or ongoing basis. And so the city won't have to necessarily get a hold of Paul, but will have a local conservation and maintenance team, should anything happen.
Councilmember Brotman, any comments?
Well, I just want to say, and it's kind of in relation to this and the last piece, is I think we have a strong Arts and Culture Commission. We have a strong arts team in Library Arts and Culture. They selected you, and you do good work. So I rely a lot on that. I know that different people have different opinions. I know Joe, who called in, and I know he's very passionate about art, and he has maybe he has a strong way of saying things, but he has very legitimate views. But I'm not an artist. And so really for me, I really look to the experts that we have on staff in the Arts and Culture Commission, and the fact that you said it was unanimous, like for nobody was it less than their second choice. Yeah. That says a lot to me, and so I'm willing to to go forward with it on that basis.
Is that a motion?
It can be. I'll make a motion.
Second.
Okay, moved by Councilmember Brotman, seconded by Councilmember Devine. As for me, the only thing I will say is, again, that I will put my faith in the Arts and Culture Commission and the process. I'm voting more in approval of the process versus my own liking of the actual piece. I will say this to our staff and to our consultant and anyone else listening in terms of the street name and the significance, which was a long road traveled to get that street name changed and for the community to accept it, represents something very special to the Armenian community. And when we're talking about the Armenian culture, we're talking about a culture that's millennia old. I find that a lot of the pieces that we're bringing are more modern in design. They lean more forward towards the future, and that's fine, but there's very little to tether and connect folks to the understanding of where we've come from as a community here in Glendale, as well as the Armenian culture, which not a lot of people here are familiar with. Certainly, when we look at representations and various types of Native American art that has evolved from the actual clay pottery and Navajo tribal rugs to how those symbols and images are represented in modern art. But I don't really see any of that, despite the fact that there's arguments being made that there is. I personally don't see that. And, you know, again, my views are pedestrian. I did not study art. I did not study art history. But I know something when it's evocative, and for some of these pieces, they're a little evocative and some are just okay. The other concern I have with it is the cost. The cost is very high in the grand scheme of things, but from my understanding, this is coming out from a fund that is specifically set aside only for artwork, and for that reason, if there's, I mean, we can't say that we can spend this money on housing or anything else, and given the cost of what it takes and the cost of building one unit of housing, that exceeds the $500,000 that this would cost, unfortunately. And I think that, you know, if it's an investment that helps enhance quality of life as they walk down Artsakh or down Broadway, so be it. So with that, let us have a roll call, please.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Yes.
Devine,
Yes.
Najarian,
Yes.
and Mayor Kasakian.
Yes. Okay. There's no other items on this agenda. Let's have a motion to adjourn.
So moved?
Is there a second? Thank you. Seconded by Councilmember Agajanian. Let us now adjourn this meeting. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
And
Appreciate
then
your time.
we'll convene the city council meeting so we can read the closed session items, the special joint meeting.
We have two closed sessions.
have
One's
two?
the joint, and then one's the regular.
Okay, so let's quickly just do the call to order the city council meeting. For anyone downstairs in GTV 6 watching, let's first do the roll call for the city council meeting. Just wait 1 second. All right, let's go.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Yes.
Brotman,
Present.
Brotman,
Here.
Devine,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Mayor Kasakian.
Here. Can you please read the closed session items into the record?
Closed session item is a conference with real property negotiators, agency negotiators attending the closed session are Rubik Galanian, Michael J. Garcia, Jillian Van Meiden, John Tuktayan, Jason Bradford, Onik Bulanikian, Mark Berry.
Sorry,
Peter-
you're reading the joint. That's the joint. Already called, the mayor called the second, the
My apologies.
council item.
Closed session items would be 1A, conference with legal counsel pending litigation, Eastman versus City of Glendale, LASC, case number 18STCV05548. B is conference with legal counsel pending litigation, claim of State Farm, claim number 22-0077. C would be conference with legal counsel pending litigation, claim of Tamazian, claim number 22-0093. Conference with legal labor negotiators, the city designated negotiators attending the closed session are Rubik Gulanian, Michael J. Garcia, Jillian Van Meiden, John Tuktayan, Amy Martin, Jason Bradford, Carl Provolitis, and Laura Calty. The name of the employee organization is Glendale Police Officers Association.
Do we anticipate reporting out on anything?
We do not anticipate reporting out.
Okay. Then we'll recess to closed session for the city council. May we have a roll call for the special joint city council and housing authority? Roll call for city council first.
Councilmember Agajanian,
Present.
Brotman,
Here.
Devine,
Here.
Najarian, Mayor Kasakian.
Here.
And for housing, but we are missing our two,
Members, but they will join us in the actual, we have quorum, so we can call it.
okay, so yes, roll call please for housing.
Authority member Agajanian,
Present.
Devine,
Here.
Kasakian,
Here.
Najarian,
Here.
Barazian, and Chair Brotman.
Here.
And the items for this closed session, please.
Closed session item is 1A, conference with real property negotiators, agency negotiators attending the closed session are Rubik Galanian, Michael J. Garcia, Jillian Van Meiden, John Tuktayan, Jason Bradford, Onik Bulanikian, Mark Berry, Peter Zovak, Mike Fortney, and Michelle Shaw Nazarians. Instructions to the negotiators will concern the price and terms for the acquisition of real property. Property number 1, location 811 East Colorado Street, negotiating parties to be incorporated. Property number 2, location 332-346 West Cerritos and 341 Mariloma, negotiating parties Kefalonia Holding LLC. Property number 3, location 426 Piedmont Avenue, negotiating parties Berge Senior Services LLC. Property number 4, location 707-725 East Colorado Street, negotiating parties Christopher and Nicolette LLC. Party number 5, location 6530 San Fernando Road and 1009 Winchester Avenue, negotiating parties Stamos Family Trust.
Excellent. Do you anticipate reporting out on any of these items?
We do not, Mr. Mayor.
Okay, let the records show that members Brazilian and Najinian joined us in the chambers, so they are present and will be joining us for closed session. We will now recess to closed session. Thank you.